Hello, good day to you all. How's it going? I'm Sean David. Welcome back to the show. Let's talk some old school NBA. In today's episode, we got a true NBA legend, four-time NBA All-Star, Mark Price. Mark, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Sean. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, man. Now, you've been on my show, I think, a week ago, and we already highlighted one game where you were, when you were playing against the Chicago Bulls, and you, beat the Bulls by a large number. But I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into your career and actually also ask you a question even before your NBA career. I wanted to know, who was the guy that you admired the most? Which NBA player was your NBA player even before you played in the NBA?
Well, I go way back, so, I don't know if this names would be familiar to other people, but when I was 10 years old, a lot of people don't know, my dad was an assistant coach for the Phoenix Suns back in 1974-75 era. And there was a guy on their team named Dick Van Arsdale.
Of course.
Who played for the Suns. And he had a twin brother, Tom, who also played in the NBA. But he was a guy that I watched, and when I was a 10-year-old even, when the other kids were running around the arena, my mom said I would just sit in my seat and I would just be glued on these guys. And then I would go home and then try to practice what I had seen. But, Dick Van Arsdale was probably kind of the first NBA guy that, it's because I got to see him every night, obviously, with the Phoenix Suns. But he was kind of a guy early on that I was like, you know what? If he can do that, I think I can too.
I'm a little bit surprised. I was expecting somebody like Isaiah because the playing style reminded me a little of you. But okay, it's always interesting to get these kind of information. Now, we already touched that topic the last time that you were basically, I don't want to say overlooked in your draft class, but I'm pretty certain that many teams were kind of mad when they saw how great you turned out. But back in the days, for a rookie, it was hard to receive any minutes. So I wanted to know, how tough was it for you waiting for your turn coming off the bench in your rookie season?
Well, it was a big learning curve. I had a veteran guy on the Cavaliers named John Bagley, who was a good player and had been around the league. And so, I was just always a student of the game. It didn't matter what my situation was. And so I just tried to learn as much as I possibly could and take advantage of the minutes. I got pretty good minutes my first year coming off the bench. And unfortunately, that first year, I also had an emergency appendicitis in the middle of the season that knocked me out for a month. So that kind of slowed down my progression a little bit. But I was able to get back in shape after that first season. I had really locked in and learned. And I think the biggest thing that happened for me that first year was that I knew, even though it was more limited minutes and there were some ups and downs, but I left that first year knowing that, I can play in this league, I belong, and I can even be really good in this league. And so I went and started working on things and really came back that next season in the best shape of my life. And they had traded John Bagley. They had drafted Kevin Johnson, and Kevin was negotiating his contract for 2 weeks. And so I had a 2-week window, in training camp where I was the only point guard there. And by the time Kevin showed up, I was rolling, and Lindy let me win the spot. And then, they eventually traded Kevin to Phoenix, who Kevin had a great career as well. So I was glad I got him early in his career because he was a great player too.
I've seen an interview with Kevin Johnson who said, and I don't know how old the interview is, but he said that he really believed at first that he could take your spot, and if you would have one single game where you wouldn't play to your best abilities, that he would get that spot, but you never seemed to give him that chance. Like he was waiting for a chance, but you kept your level at a constant high level. And it's unbelievable that a team has two incredible point guards on the same team, because Kevin was incredible, you've been incredible. Just to imagine if he would have stayed, maybe the Cavs would have had a chance to work something out, playing with 2 point guards, the same rotation that you had with Ron Harper. I think you and Kevin could have played well alongside each other.
Yeah, it was just, I think it was a different era, a different time where most of the most of the two guards back then, you were talking 6'7", 6'8", really big guards at the two position. I think, flash forward to today's era, that certainly we could have played together and been very effective because we were both really good offensive players and yet we were different style players, and I think we could have complemented each other well.
Yes.
But I think, it all worked out for both people. Kevin went on and had a great career in Phoenix. I was able to make my run in Cleveland, and so it worked out well for both of us.
Now, in your second season, when you became a starter, you basically played on an all-star level already. I wanted to know, from all the point guards that you played against at that time, let's say in the mid-'80s, who was the one guy that you felt was your toughest matchup?
Well, I think you mentioned his name earlier, but Isaiah Thomas, being at Detroit, they were making their run with the Bad Boys and that whole, years there where they won a couple championships. And Isaiah, we were in the same division, so we played against each other 6 times a season. So we kind of developed a pretty good rivalry there. And he was a guy, obviously, that I looked forward to playing against. And he was such a good player and a challenge. Along with, every team had a great point guard. It's the NBA, but, I think Isaiah was the guy at that time that was somebody that I looked up to as a player and really, wanted to play well when we played against them.
Now, back in the 80s, we had some of the greatest rivalries in NBA history. Actually, there were so many great rivalries. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Boston Celtics and Larry Bird, because they also been in the Eastern Conference at that time. And doing my research, I actually saw that you had some great shootout nights with Larry Bird. What was it like playing against the Celtics, and what was it like playing against Larry?
Well, he really was, his nickname, Larry Legend, he really was such a legend and such a great player and the things that he could do at his size. And he really was one of the first, kind of big guys, 6'10" or whatever, that, shot a lot of 3-point shots, stretched the defense, could play inside, outside, such a great passer, a smart basketball player, and we, it was a privilege to get to play in that era that I played in and to get to play against so many of those great players. And, Larry's last game happened to be against us in the Eastern Conference Finals the year we got there. And so I like to tell people that I ended Larry's career, but it was, he was such a, he just, when he was in the game and you were playing against him, he had such an impact on it in so many ways.
In your second season, you finished the season shooting 50% from the field and 48% from three-point line, which is unbelievable. You already mentioned that you worked on your game and worked on specific things to improve your game. Was shooting really something that you noticed pretty early? Okay, that will be my bread and butter. That is something that you would have to work on, or was that something that evolved naturally?
Well, it's funny because really my bread and butter was the pick and roll, playing out of the pick and roll offense with Brad Daugherty in particular, but a lot of my Cavs teammates. And the funny thing was during my 4-year college career, I never ran a pick and roll one single time. And so it was like, it was something that, looking back on it, I used to tell Coach Crimmins, my college coach, I was like, why didn't you run pick and rolls? I'd have been killing people out here, but it just wasn't the style that we played in college, but it was something that morphed into my game naturally. And, it was something that I didn't even think twice about because it was such a natural part of my game. And I was able to shoot the ball behind screens, stretch defenses. I think my ability to shoot the ball really put pressure on the defense playing out of the pick and roll, because they either had to guard me or, you had a big all-star player rolling to the basket like Brad Daugherty that they had to worry about as well. So it was pretty impossible to guard, and teams tried a lot of different ways to stop it, but that was our go-to, and we did really well with that.
It's funny that you mentioned that that the pick and roll was your bread and butter. Splitting the pick and roll. Seriously, I'm a basketball coach. Been coaching for so many years, and I gotta be honest. I don't want to lie. I have to be honest. Up until like 4 years ago, I didn't even know that you can split a pick and roll. And once I did some research, and because I always remembered you as this great shooter, creative passer, but I never really paid too much attention to the splitting the pick and roll part. How do you come up with that? Because I don't know any other player who used to do that in the 80s.
Well, it was, a lot of people give me credit for kind of being the first guy to do it. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. I'd never really seen it happen either. But I'd become so effective at shooting the ball, coming off the pick and rolls. The defenses started really adjusting to that and being a lot more aggressive, trying to trap me off screens, really jumping their big guy out really high to try to like redirect me coming off the screens. Teams are trying all kinds of different things. And I'll never forget the first time it happened, because we had played a back-to-back with Philadelphia, and I was playing against the great Mo Cheeks, for Philly. And my rookie season at Cleveland, I think my career high, something like 29 points. I was coming off screens, just making threes like crazy. And so we have to go, which we did in the old days a lot. You played the same team the next night, in their arena. So they obviously weren't going to let me do that again. And so, when I get in the game, they're just like jumping me like crazy. And so one time I come off the screen and their big guy jumped so far out, it like opened up. It looked like it opened up like the Red Sea, right there. And I just kind of instinctively just kind of threw a pass a little bit through that and caught it and shot a little shot at the free throw line. And as we were going back down the court, Mo Cheeks was like, "Man, that was a sweet move," and so like I locked that away, and I was like, at that point I started working on it. I kind of said, well, I can use this. I can really make this an effective part of my game, especially how the defenses are trying to play me now. So that's kind of how it came about. And, I just kept doing it and really got to the point every time I came off the screen, you could hear the other coach saying, "Don't let him split you. Don't let him split you."
Back in the late 1980s, you became an NBA All-Star officially now. Who were you excited about the most to play with him? Like, was there a certain player where you were like super excited, like, hey, I'm playing with this specific person?
Well, it was just, it was so much fun. Like I said, I played in such a great era. There were so many great players. Obviously guys like Larry Bird. In the Eastern Conference, you had, when I first got in the, Julius Erving, guys like that. And of course, the rise of Michael Jordan. He was starting to make his rise. Charles Barkley. There was just so many great, personalities and great players during that era that it was a blast. It's like really, I'm like getting a chance to play with all these guys. And, in an all-star game, I was like, shaking my head like this is unreal. So it was a dream come true, and just it was a lot of fun to one, be voted in. I was never picked as a starter, but I was always voted in by the coaches, which to me meant a lot more, even because they really knew what guys were effective, and by putting me on the All-Star team, that meant a lot to me.
Back in 1991, the Dream Team is selected. Do me a favor, in all honesty, were you disappointed that you weren't on the team?
Well, of course. Obviously I felt like I was good enough to be on that team, but there's only so many guys, that can be on one team, and obviously you can't. Other than the one college player and Christian Laettner, you can't really pick a guy off of that first Dream Team and say, hey, they didn't belong. There's several, a lot of the guys like myself that were eventually picked for Dream Team too. Could have all made a case for being on that team as well. But no, it is what it is. I have great respect for all those guys that were on that team. And like I said, it's just weren't enough spots for everybody.
Yeah, very true. But you've been on the U.S. team in 1994, weren't you?
That's correct. Yeah.
Basketball historian, yes. Now, one sad part about your career was that you had to battle many, many injuries. Same happened to your Cleveland Cavaliers teams. Brett got hurt. Ron got traded. Okay, different situation. But it seemed like players that get drafted with the Cavs at that time always had some injuries to battle. But looking back, who or what team do you think was the best Cavs team that you played on?
No question. I think that the team that gets a lot of storyline because the year Michael hit the shot was really a first-round series that season, and I really felt like we were a contender to win the whole thing with Ron Harper at the two guard, Brad, Larry Nance. We had Hot Rod Williams, Craig Elo that were coming off the bench. We were really deep, and unfortunately, injuries hit us at the wrong time. Most people don't realize that the first-round series back then were just 5 games. And so it was a little bit easier to pull an upset. And, you lose one game you shouldn't, it can put you in a bind. And we had actually beaten the Chicago Bulls that year 6 times. And we were just a dominant team. And I had pulled my hamstring. I wasn't even able to play in the first game of that series. And Chicago stole that game in Cleveland. I then came back and played the last 4, kind of hobbled, but we were still able to get it to that 5th game, beat Chicago in game 4 in Chicago to bring it back to Cleveland. And then Michael, of course, hit the shot. It was an unbelievable series, but I really believe that team was probably our best team. And then after that season, of course, the infamous Ron Harper trade that sent him. And I felt like once we lost Ron, because he was that one kind of slasher type, athletic player that could just take it and get you a bucket, at the rim. We had a lot of really, really good pieces, but we really missed the kind of player that he was. And he fit so well with our roster and with me in particular in the backcourt. Yes. So after that, we were always very good and very competitive still, but we didn't quite have that piece to get us over the hump.
I agree. Also my favorite Cavs team. So we're definitely on the same page. Now, since your retirement, you've been pretty busy. You've been coaching, and I actually was wondering, are there any plans on returning to coaching? Because with the way the game is played today, who would be a better coach for today's game than you?
Well, I obviously love teaching the game. I've been coaching, for a long time now. This year, I haven't been with the team. It's been a little bit of with all the craziness of COVID and just the cancellation of the season and then the bubble thing and all that. So I've just kind of been sitting back from afar, kind of watching things, what's happening, and just waiting to see what opportunities are there next year. But I definitely still have a great passion for the game and love teaching the game. And if the right opportunity presented itself, I certainly would be interested in getting back into coaching again.
What about working for the Cavs? Because I personally feel like there are certain players, when you hear the name, you always have them in your mind with one specific team. And to me, it just feels natural that certain players should be coaching or at least working for a specific type of club. You are a 100% Cleveland Cavalier. So were there ever any thoughts about coaching for the Cavs?
Well, I love the Cavs organization. They know that. I mean, the city of Cleveland knows. I mean, like you said, anybody that ever associates me with the NBA, always associates me with the Cavaliers. My jersey's hanging in their rafters.
Yes.
So I have great fondness for the Cavs organization. Obviously, anytime if an opportunity presented itself to come along and work with the Cavs organization, and I would certainly be thrilled to have that opportunity. But we'll see. You never know what'll happen down the road, but that relationship I've always kept close there. The fans in Cleveland, we've always had a really, really, really special relationship, and I love the city of Cleveland and the Cavs organization.
Dear Cleveland Cavaliers, be smart. I'm already helping you here, okay? Now, Mark, before I let you go, a current project of yours. Actually, I was super happy to find out how the project turned out and how your t-shirts looks. You have a t-shirt project. Can you tell something about that project?
Yeah, I came together with a company called the Cleveland Clothing Company in the Cleveland area. Of course, during this COVID time, I was talking to some friends in Cleveland, and he had a connection with this guy, and he knew the t-shirt company, and we were like, we need to do a project together just to raise some funds, donate some money to the Cleveland Food Bank. And so they developed and designed this Mark Price for three, which a guy named Howie Chiswick used to announce it at the games all the time when I played, Mark Price for three. And so they made this, Mark Price for three t-shirt, and it did extremely well. People were real excited about it. It sold out however many they made. And so, we've decided to reboot that and put it out there again. So if anybody is interested in a cool looking t-shirt, a Mark Price 3 t-shirt, it's available.
Okay, I will post the link underneath the video or the podcast. So if you want to purchase this great shirt, check the link out in the description. Mark, it was great having you on the show.
Well, it's always great spending time with you. I always appreciate history, NBA aficionados, and you know your stuff, and I respect that, and I enjoy our conversations.